Hello, everyone. First of all, thank you to Iceland for organizing this incredible conference and inviting us to your beautiful country. It's my first time, and I'm very excited. I brought my kids. First of all, I want to give you a quick overview of my presentation. We'll give you a quick history on aquatic environment management in Denmark. I'll characterize the main pressures in Danish river basins. I will give a short overview on our program of measures, our mitigation measures, and the status of their implementation. Give you a status on the achievement of good status and potential, and finish off with a few words on our development initiatives. Very briefly, our history. We started with our first aquatic environment management plan in 1987, the second in 98, and our third in 2004. And these were very focused on reducing discharge of nutrients from wastewater and farming. Since then, we now work with the EU Water Framework Directive and are working on our third river basin management plan. And these plans are far more focused on the concrete focus on environmental quality and the goals of the Water Framework Directive. Our proposal for the third river basin management plan implement efforts to ensure good status in all our water bodies based on updated knowledge, which we develop in collaboration with the Danish research institutions. We have initiatives that are expected to cost almost 5.4 billion Danish kroner. We just completed our final public hearing of our proposal on the 22nd of June, received 1,800 answers that are currently being evaluated, and we expect to implement the plan at the end of the year. We have 4 river basin districts in Denmark. We have Jylland and Fyn. We have Sjælland, we have Bornholm, and then we have our international basin in the southern part of Denmark. We have 23 main river catchments and approximately 10,500 water bodies, lakes, rivers, coastal areas, and groundwater bodies. The political process in river basin management planning in Denmark is carried out by the ministry. It's supported by the Protection Agency, who is responsible for the scientific foundation for the plans. Managing the program of measures is also the responsibility of the Protection Agency, but the concrete mitigation measures are implemented by municipalities. These include measures such as river restoration. There are also mitigation measures that are implemented by the state, such as targeted catch crops. And funding is shared between EU and national funds. I've attempted to set up tables to give you an overview of the main river basin pressures in Denmark. They're mainly based on nutrient loading, primarily from farming, organic material from point sources, including aquaculture, wastewater treatment plants, households in rural areas, and overflow from sewers. We have inputs of hazardous substances from point and diffuse sources, such as wastewater, surface runoff, and atmospheric deposition. In rivers, we also have concrete physical pressures that also are a result of a lot of agricultural activity, sediment transport, and water extraction. Beyond the effects from nutrient loading in lakes, there is also water extraction, and a biological imbalance due to invasive species and unnaturally small predatory populations. In coastal waters, again, there is nutrient loading from upstream areas. There is airborne nutrient loading, internal loading, and inputs from hazardous substances, much like with lakes. There's also a number of physical pressures due to fishing and sailing activities, extraction of raw materials, and shore nourishment, and pressures from construction. Also biological imbalance due to invasive species and overfishing. In groundwater, we have problems with nitrates from the use of fertilizers, pesticides and their degradation products, and again, other hazardous substances. Overexploitation in groundwater can reduce flow in the surface waters, and we experience saltwater intrusion in our groundwater bodies and increased concentrations of arsenic, nickel, and sulfates. Our program of measures for the third river basin management plan is based on a broad political agreement on the green transition of the agricultural sector. The agreement includes reduction targets for climate emissions of 55 to 65%, and a target to reach compliance with the Water Framework Directive in 2027. In order to do so, the agreement includes measures that will reduce nitrogen discharge to coastal waters by approximately 10,800 tons in 2027. The effort is based on voluntary contributions from farmers, and in order for this to work, an environmental guarantee has been introduced. So every second year, a stock taking of the rollout of these collective measures will be carried out. And this environmental guarantee implies that if the level of the voluntary collective nitrogen measures can't be achieved, we will implement regulatory measures that also will include financial compensation of the farmers. The implementation of the environmental guarantee is to be discussed between the political parties and will be agreed upon between them. In 2023 or 24, there will be a second opinion where the parties behind the Green Agreement will revisit it to ensure that the nitrogen efforts are in line with the requirements of the Water Framework Directive. The goals in the program of measures, of course, include reducing nutrient loading from agriculture and other diffuse sources to our surface waters, specifically reduce nitrogen loading to our coastal waters, reduce wastewater discharge to lakes and rivers, restore our lakes and rivers, enhance our knowledge on hazardous substances in aquatic environment, and improve the quality and quantity of our groundwater. Here is a few pictures of some of our mitigation measures, and certainly not all of them. We plan to remove approximately 400 barriers from our streams. We will acquire some aquaculture, physically restore a little less than 4,000 kilometers of rivers, reduce overflow from sewers, restore lakes, take lowland areas out of agricultural production, plant more catch crops, implement more troll-free zones, plant forests, and improve wastewater treatment in rural areas. I have tried to sum up the status on the implementation of our mitigation measures as of the end of the second River Basin Management Plan. To reduce nitrate loading to coastal waters, I mentioned we both have collected measures and targeted measures. So we regularly take status on the implementation of our collective measures, which these figures show. So the figure on the left, figure 1, shows the percentage of completed, approved, and applied projects along with the deficit. And these collective measures include wetlands, removing lowland areas from production, and planting forests. And their goal is to reduce nitrogen loading by 2,450 tons of nitrogen by 2021. So this is the latest status from May 22, and we update this regularly on our website. The figure on the right basically shows the same information, but is presented in tons of nitrates. In addition to the collective measures, I mentioned targeted regulation of nitrates. We have a goal of 3,500 tons per year, and this is to be regulated via catch crops and other alternative measures that reduce runoff from farmland. This has been implemented since 2019, and we consider that we've reached this target. These measures are in addition to improved wastewater treatment and acquisition of aquaculture, which is then also expected to help us to meet the goal of 6,900 tons of nitrate. In addition to the nitrate goals, we also have a goal of improving our wastewater treatment, and this will reduce loading of organic material to streams and phosphor to lakes. Some of these measures were not implemented in our second River Basin Management Plan and have therefore been transferred to the third River Basin Management Plan. But we have also seen a lot of progress since 1997, which is when we implemented our law on improved wastewater treatment. We also plan to physically restore our rivers, which has been ongoing for a while, including removing barriers and restoring stream reaches. We've approximately, of the end of the second River Basin Management Plan, removed approximately 26% of our barriers and restored a little less than half of the stream reaches. We would also have the goal to reduce phosphorus to lakes, again using wetlands and acquisition of aquaculture. In the second River Basin Management Plan, a reduction need of approximately 103 tons of phosphorus was determined, but because we didn't have effective mitigation measures, the goal was to reduce loading by 15 tons by establishing 900 hectares of wetlands and acquiring 50 aquaculture plants. And by the end of the second River Basin Management Plan, 5 wetlands were established and 5 aquaculture plants were acquired, which resulted in a load reduction of 1.5 tons of phosphor. Other lake restoration measures include removal of planktivorous fish, precipitation of phosphorus, which has been carried out in approximately half of the lakes that are in need of restoration. We are working on enhancing the knowledge base regarding environmentally hazardous pollutants. We have launched a new national strategy to improve aquatic environment and reduce health risks. It implements 20 initiatives, including enhancing our understanding of the pollutants and their pathways, their hazardous properties, enhancing the monitoring of these substances, enhancing detection, and developing technology to treat and monitor and analyze. And many projects have also been implemented and developed in order to enhance our knowledge on groundwater resources and limit the activities with negative impacts on our resources. So these mitigation measures have been implemented in the hope of achieving the goals of the Water Framework Directive. This was the status that we undertook for the proposal for the third River Basin Management Plan that shows that we have achieved good ecological status in 5% of coastal areas, 28% of rivers, 20% of lakes. We have 98% of groundwater areas that have been evaluated to have good quantitative status, and just less than half have been shown to have good chemical status. There has been little change in the percentage of achievement of good ecological status and goals in the Water Framework Directive from the second to the proposal for the third River Basin Management Plan. So we have implemented a number of development initiatives, and these include models and research to understand cause and effect between pressures. We are mapping phosphorus sources and pathways, links between groundwater and surface water quality, anthropogenic impacts other than nutrient loading on coastal areas, natural impacts on river quality, and links to good ecological status. We are improving our mapping, including of groundwater resources, of the challenges to groundwater quality, and revising our delineation of coastal areas. We're increasing our number of indicators. We have introduced phytobenthos as a biological quality indicator in rivers. We have more quality and quantity indicators for groundwater, and developed more stringent thresholds for environmentally hazardous pollutants. We're including more mitigation measures, including targeted nitrogen regulation, which is a scheme that targets different requirements for nitrogen reduction for different water catchment areas based on the calculated needed effort to reach the goal. I mentioned a second opinion that we're having undertaken in 23-24, which will also include an evaluation of the science behind measures, how to handle remaining mitigation needs, and will include consultation of international scientists. We will further increase engagement of local stakeholders, including implementing water councils for coastal areas. That was what I had to say.